Hi, everyone. I'm Anna Brown from Katie Budget Books. I'm the events and marketing manager here. And Munch Bunch Cookbook Club is my baby. I am one of those moms who just does not want to eat the same 5 meals every week. So I'm a little bit of a cookbook hoarder because that gives me the ability to bring some variety into my cooking. I am really excited about our guest this month because she has written More Veggies, Please. Oh, see, green screening does weird things to books. More Veggies, Please. It's about bringing more vegetables into your kids' diet, which I love. I'm really blessed that my little ones right now are going through a pretty willing vegetable eating phase, but that has not always been my experience. So I'm always looking for ways to sneak a little more in there. So today we have with us Nikki Dinki, who is a chef, author, mom, TV host, and picky eater turned veggie lover who is spreading the delicious veggie word. You can flip through her award-winning first book, Meat on the Side, follow her food-driven adventures and unique creations on multiple Food Network and Cooking Channel series, and watch her share recipes regularly on the Wendy Williams and Dr. Oz shows. She also candidly reveals her successes and struggles of navigating 3 kids, including a set of twins, which just by itself sounds overwhelming to me, and offers up more tasty veggie-focused recipes on social media and NikkiDinkiCooking.com. We are so pleased to have her here with us today. She's going to be demoing her sweet potato tortillas. So Nikki, I'm going to put you front and center.
Well, hello. I am Nikki Dinki, and yes, we are going to be making sweet potatoes into tortillas. It could not be simpler. They are outrageously good, a little chewy, a little sweet. It's one of my favorite things. I put them for tacos. I make egg burritos in them. We do quesadillas. Sometimes I cut squares and make them into little like crispy, shapes for my kids. It's one of my favorite things, and I'm telling you, it sounds kind of simple for a demo. It's really just sweet potato and flour. That's basically it. I'm going to show you how easy it is to come together. There's a couple things that it's always good to know, and this is what we're going to end up with. So first things first, the veggies. So in all of my recipes, I've got those really classic dishes, your mac and cheese, your chicken nuggets, tortillas, everyone, I feel like kids love quesadillas. But I'm trying to veggie-fy them. And so in this case, the sweet potato is my new friend. So the sweet potato is going to be part of our dough here. And the most important thing to do first is to cook this guy. Now, I always believe in giving you options as far as what you want to do. For me, because there's going to be a little bit of a dough made, I'm going to have to roll them out. That's a lot of effort. And I'm going to take the easy route and put this guy in the microwave for 5 minutes. And after you do that, he's going to look a little something like this. Super nice and tender. If your microwave isn't that strong, you can give it an extra minute, but you can definitely put it in the oven. That's great. I just think sometimes when we're making something like a homemade tortilla, we got to take our shortcuts here and there, and that is totally fine in my book. So our sweet potato is all cooked up, and I'm just going to peel away the skin. You could scoop it out, but I find especially if it's been sitting for a minute, the skin is just going to kind of pop off. We made this a little bit earlier, so it's not too hot. They can come out of the, oven or microwave super, super hot. But that is all it is, sweet potato inside of my food processor. I'm gonna put this over to the side. And then I'm going to put in some flour, but first, I'm just gonna give it a little bit of a pulse. Now, if you can find canned sweet potato, which I do find on occasion in my store, that can work great. I haven't done it, but I don't see why like pureed butternut squash wouldn't work with a little extra flour. But really all we're gonna do is put our sweet potato in there, puree that up. You can see it's starting just to kind of smooth out a little bit. Then I've got some flour and I've got a little bit of garlic powder and salt. And you know what? I started using a new brand of salt. It's a little extra salty. I don't know if you guys know, but there's been a run on diamond crystal salt. There was some sort of talk that it was going to go away completely, and so people hoarded it and bought tons of boxes, and now nobody can get it. So I'm using Morton's, which is also a really popular brand, but it's a little bit saltier. So these are little things that you pick up in the cooking world, but the great thing is, the reason that I have this book is to do the thinking for you. I want to keep it so simple. I want these recipes to literally be something that whether or not you're a really good cook or you're, well, really not, it's going to work for you. So with my sweet potato, or not sweet potato, think about that one for a minute. With my sweet potato, I've got that garlic powder and salt, and then I'm just going to put in my flour. And then you want a dough to come together. And this is one of those things, and it totally, I explained in the book, that can be a tiny bit tricky because, you know, sweet potatoes can be all different sizes. I definitely give you the right size, but you know, depending what you find, yours might be a little bit bigger, a little bit smaller. But really, any dough you're working with, it's kind of simple. If the dough doesn't come together, we're gonna add a little bit more water. A splash of water might be all we need. If the dough is too, if it's not, if it's too crumbly and it's not coming together in a ball, you're gonna add a splash of water. If it's too loose and you can't really like pack it, we're gonna add a little bit more flour. But as you can already see, as it's like pulling away, it looks pretty good to me. I think a little bit more flour. As I'm touching it here, it just feels a little sticky. You can see it on my fingers. So I'm gonna give this guy a little bit more flour. It's always tough when you take the food processor off the base. It like does not want to go back in, you know what I mean? You only know that if you do demos all the time. So now I gotta take out the blade, put it back in. I'm gonna squeeze this blade back in here. I am a professional. I will try not to hurt myself. All right, there we go. So this one feels a little bit wet. I'm gonna add in a little bit more flour, and I actually hadn't already used all the flour in the recipe. So I have a feeling that I'm gonna be spot on once I give this another couple of pulses. And you know, what I love about these recipes in general is that it's classic flavors. I'm not pushing anything too far. And even these tortillas, you're not tasting this super strong sweet potato flavor. You're really just getting a chewiness from the sweet potato, a very little bit of sweetness, but really you're tasting a little bit of that garlic powder and then just kind of a bread flavor. And so all of my recipes, I challenge myself to how do I add as much vegetables as possible? Well, in a way, hiding them. I truly believe that vegetables can enhance dishes, but I did want to make sure that when you made something, especially for your picky eater, that it wasn't going to be something that they're not going to eat. Nobody wants to spend their time and then have something that no one's eating. So I really tried to have the flavors be special, but not too veggie forward. So in some ways you can say that it's hidden vegetables, but I do believe that vegetables only make dishes better. And in this case, just moving my mess, and in this case, it gives you a chewier tortilla than you ever would otherwise. So this is looking pretty good. You can almost see even from there how it's really pulled off and formed its own ball. And the rest of the bowl is nice and clean. That tells me that it's really coming together. And listen, if it's a tiny bit sticky, that's okay, because we're gonna put some flour down. And we're gonna get right on some flour. And I do want this to be a little bit sticky. It's not gonna be super dry, because if it is, it's gonna have too much flour in it. You can see, it's still a little sticky. But I'm gonna start coating it in this flour, and it's gonna allow it to not stick to my hands. And listen, you can always add a little bit more flour. But if you add too much flour right now because you're concerned about it being sticky, and remember, look how sticky that was and how dry it is now. But if you start adding too much flour, there's a chance that you're gonna end up with something that's just overly floured. It's gonna be kind of on the dry side. So I would say to err on the side of a little sticky. Oop, a little sticky, no big deal. I'm gonna put it in my flour. All right, let's see if I have a knife. I do. Now, it might seem obvious I should have a nice knife in my kitchen, but I am actually in my basement studio kitchen, which is where I go to cook and get away from my children, because I do have 3 kids. So sometimes we don't have everything that we need. So here is my dough. You can cut it into some pieces. I think in the book I say this makes 6 tortillas, which I think sounds pretty right to me. Let's start with one. I'm gonna make this one a little bit bigger so you can really see it. I'm gonna start with 1 ball of dough and just show you how we cook that up. Also at this moment, I feel the need to confess that I was eating one earlier. Guys, I have been going all day. I think I had some eggs at some point, but you know, when I see good food around and I was prepping these for you, you know that I was gonna have some. So same thing, it's getting a little bit sticky. We're just gonna put more flour. It's no big deal. Flour is your friend. I'm really like hitting here. Okay, so this rolling pin is way too big for the job. This is like one of those rolling pins that I got from my wedding registry. And you know, you're applying for all these things and you think to yourself, oh, I need the best of the best. So I'm gonna get this giant Williams Sonoma rolling pin. And then you get home, especially when I lived in New York, and now I'm outside of the city, but I was in a New York City apartment for 17 years. And I don't even have a counter spot, like, countertop big enough to roll around with this thing. It is so huge, and I can't even describe to you how heavy it is. And I don't know about you, but I have not been working out like I have been wanting to. Too many kids, too many things. So anyway, any rolling pin will do, an old wine bottle, whatever you have. I'm just flipping it as I go because it does want to stick a little bit, and I'm not going to let it. And the way that I'm not going to let it is I kind of just mush around the flour each time so that there's no chance that I have squished it so much into the countertop where it's going to stick, because nobody wants to make a perfect circle and then tear it up and be like, oh my gosh, what happened? Okay, so you want it definitely you want it on the thin side. Go a little bit thinner than you think you should. And the reason that I can actually say that to you is because I had over 400 taste testers cooking these recipes along with me as I was developing them. And what it did is it gave me a lot of insight into what people were doing and what, so what were some of the problems that came up again and again and again. And one of those things was rolling it thin enough. So there you go. Now, I've given my time. Oh, well, my ring just poked a hole in that. Uh-oh. Just squish it back together. It'll be fine. So I, over here on my stovetop, have a nice big pan. This is a nonstick, but it's a high heat nonstick. Not all nonsticks are, because we really want high heat here. I am going to cook it fast and hot. I am going to let these air bubbles start to form, and that's the way they're going to cook it. It's a dry pan. There's no oil. There's no butter. All I'm going to do is, as soon as it's hot enough, I think it's hot enough. Let's see what happens. I'm just going to put this right in the pan. You think I can do this with one hand? This might be a very bad idea. Hey, there we go. All right, back on the stove. And once those bubbles start to form, oh my gosh, I just did another hole in it. Guys, listen, even if your food isn't picture perfect, it's okay. And even if one of these comes out super weird, which honestly, it's a pretty easy dough, it shouldn't, but it happens to the best of us, especially when you're talking, you got rings on. Cut it up into triangles and bake it into chips, or, cook it in a little cinnamon and sugar butter and have it be something for a little after school snack. Don't stress so much in the kitchen. It's all fine. You are making your own homemade tortillas. That is something to be very proud of, and that is enough. All right, I almost see some bubbles. I'm gonna give that 15 more seconds. I'll show you the bubbles. If I can find a pair of tongs, I'm gonna flip it for you. And so what you'll find in the book is you're gonna find breakfast, lunch, dinner, dessert, snacks were very important to me, because if your house is anything like mine, it's snack city. And these are all things that I have veggified. I have found a way to infuse vegetables in every classic American dish for the most part. I only had so many pages. There's 100 of them. And here, guys, I just want to show you the tortilla. You can kind of see it's starting to bubble up. And when I flip it, you can see where those bubbles were. And so now it's just going to cook on the other side. I have a spinach tortilla in the book and a yellow squash corn tortilla. For those ones, it's very important to let them steam a little bit after they cook. But these guys, and there's a reason why they're a top 10 recipe, is because they're so easy. There's nothing you can do to them. They are going to be perfect. They do not need to steam. They're never going to crack on you. And this is taking me a minute and a half, 2 minutes for it to cook. Really not very long. I'm sorry, it's not super easy to see, but you can kind of see how it's bubbled up. Those bubbles will go down, but what that tells me is that the inside has steamed and cooked. So this guy looks great. I'm going to get my tongs because, as proud as I am of my fingertips that don't get burned anymore, there's no reason to burn them if you don't have to. And look, here is our sweet potato. Think about this. We started this video, 10 minutes ago with a sweet potato that I put in the microwave for 5 minutes. And we have sweet potato tortillas. Now, all you would do is roll the rest of those. Now, I do have the one that I was eating, but I'll show you a little bit better one. And I made such a big tortilla, so I might have a real meal here. Now, this actually is my taco meat that's also in the book. And this taco meat is half meat, half beans. And what you do is you just brown your beef, and then you mash beans on top, and it kind of fuses to it, and then you mix it all together. I mean, no one in their right mind would know that there's beans in there. And suddenly you are stretching 1 pound of beef to more like 2. So I like a little bit of this taco mixture. I always like cheese. I don't think there's, excuse me, a dish that I did not put cheese on. A little bit of salsa. And I'm sorry that you cannot be eating with me, but I will take one for the team and I will take a bite for all of us. Oh, guys, that was a big bite. It's so good. I am not lying to you. You are going to die when you realize that you just made this tortilla at home. That's so much healthier for you than anything you could buy in the store. But it's also that much better. This is worth your time. I love recipes that are simply going to be your new favorites. Well, you know, giving you something extra. So cheers. I'm sorry I can't give you guys all some.
Thank you so much. I have also made the spaghetti squash Alfredo from the cookbook, and also your tomato soup with yogurt.
Yes.
Basil yogurt drizzle. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
So good. And I love that the tomato soup makes enough that I could freeze some.
The freezer, and I always give notes on what you can freeze, how long it'll last, what to do when you want to thaw it. I have a whole section in the back telling you the recipes that are best for freezing, trying to make life easy for you.
Yes, I love that. Also, as a busy working mom, it is so nice to know what will be easy to freeze and thaw, which is not a thing they include in a lot of cookbooks. So I appreciate that so much.
I'm just eating.
That's totally fine. If all you've had is a couple of bites of taco today, you need it.
Basically, you know, we're trying, but I do sometimes feel like the busier the day goes. My kids are usually fed, but sometimes I look at the end of the day and I haven't eaten what I want to, or maybe as well as I wanted to. And that's why I love these things, because, you know, these muffins have 5 cups of spinach in them. So if all I have time for is to grab a muffin, well, it's a muffin I can feel really good about. So I do love that all these recipes just kind of make you feel like even if the day went to, you know, hell in a handbasket, you still ended up with some sort of vegetable in there, whether it's for you or your kids.
Okay, well, thank you again so much, Nikki, for doing this demo with us. I am not going to lie to you. When I saw the tortilla recipe in the book, I just immediately was like, there's no way. I'm not great at bread products in general. Baking is not my thing, which this is not really baking, but every time I've made a dough, something has gone wrong. I feel a lot more comfortable after this.
I think that breads can be really intimidating. This has no yeast, it doesn't even have any baking powder, baking soda. You cook it in a pan. I understand maybe people have never made a tortilla before, but I think once they do, they'll realize that it's actually an option. And these also can be put in the freezer.
Awesome. Okay, well, I'm not seeing any questions for attendees, so thank you so much for doing this with us. Thank you for this cookbook. It has been really helpful for me in my home already.
Glad to hear it, for sure. That's the whole point, is like, how do we just make life a little easier? Let me help you.
All right. Thank you very much. You have a great rest of your day.
Okay. Thank you guys. Bye.